The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
People get ready for the train to come. You don't need no baggage, you just need on board. You need a to hear the diesels humming.
Hello, everybody out there listening to Armed Radio. We're broadcasting live from Boston, Massachusetts, and welcome to our show, All Aboard, with Donald Whisman and my co-host, Todd Doyle. Todd, you want to say hello?
Hello, everybody on Armed Radio. I hope everybody's having a great night. We've got a great show lined up for you. And Donald and I run a group on Facebook. It's called Trump 2020 with an exclamation point at the end. And if you want to follow us on there, see our live videos, and follow what our group is doing, we've got some great group members, and we bust breaking news all the time. And we try to put the pieces together for people that don't have the time or can't keep up with all the breaking news that's been happening since Donald Trump became president.
And basically, Todd, that's what we do. We really try to tell everybody the things that most of the mainstream media is not going to be telling you. But you guys, we had a terrible tragedy this past Sunday at 11:30 a.m. on Sunday. A gunman came into Sutherland Springs, Texas, in this church, the First Baptist Church. This madman killed 27 innocent people. He injured 30 of those people. And I just want to pray for these people tonight, just a little bit. I mean, these poor people did not deserve this. And I just want to say, Lord, I pray that you give the families that lost their loved ones in this Texas shooting, cover them, Lord. And I ask you, dear Lord, to help them get through this. Lord, I ask you, watch over our country, and I pray that nothing like this happens again. It's happened too much, Lord. Please, I pray for all the violence to stop. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. And with that being said, Todd,
Amen.
This guy, his name, I got his name here. Well, you know, it's Devin Kelly. And this man, this murdering piece of crap, this news is slowly leaking out. I found out today, Todd, that he actually escaped from a mental facility. You got anything you want to talk about on that, Todd?
Yeah, from what I've been reading about Devin Kelly, it appears that he was once an Air Force member, and then after that he was actually put into the mental facility, I believe, by the Air Force, and he ended up escaping. And this all happened during Obama's tenure as president when he had his 8 years. And some of the reporting that's coming out from alternative media is saying that this was all covered up when it happened under Obama's under his reign as president. And what they're saying is that it was that to have a service member escape from a mental institution because he threatened to kill people he was working with, to have something like that covered up, this is just another, it appears to be, it's kind of speculation at this point, but it appears to be sort of like a small cover-up during Obama's time in office, but I don't know exactly who was involved, so I don't want to say too much on that. But it's looking like there was some shady attempts at a cover-up, and this man went on to shoot up the church in Texas. So, if our government can't even keep someone that needs to be in a mental hospital, and then it just makes me kind of wonder why they tried to cover it up when it happened, when he escaped back then.
Well, Todd, when I started the show, I really wanted to send a great big God bless you out to all the men and women that are serving in our military right now, that are putting their lives on the line every day, past and present. Let's all out there listening to Arm Radio, let's not forget these men and women that are in our military. And Todd, about this guy that went into this church. Now, we were talking the other night. There is no more safe places in America. It seems to me there is no more safe places to go. So the only thing that I could come up with How can we stop it? I don't think we can stop it. The only thing that I think as Americans that we can do at this point until our president gets that border closed and gets these gang violence down and gets these mental people some help, the only thing that I think the American people can do at this point in time, Mr. Doyle, is to get down on their knees, pray, and I think every American should be carrying a gun, even if it's at church. Say like Todd, if you had your gun on you while you was at church, and that madman came in there and started shooting. Now, he might have killed a few people, but if you would have got up with your gun, Todd, I think that you could have stopped this man, or anybody, not just you, but anybody carrying a gun could have stopped this madman before he killed that many people.
Well, from my understanding, I completely agree with you, Donald, and I would have no problem dropping somebody that was shooting and killing innocent people. But my understanding with Texas is that you can walk around in most parts of Texas, as far as I'm aware, and open carry a weapon or conceal carry. The problem some people are having now, coming from the left side of the spectrum, the Democrats, they're trying to say, well, no one should carry a gun in church. Let me explain something real quick, Donald. Some churches, they do work overseas, and they go into these Muslim nations where they bring Muslims to Jesus Christ. And what's happened is some churches have been very successful, and I will say, because my personal knowledge is that several Baptist churches send missionaries overseas. So they've been successful with bringing Christ into what I would call, it would be the Stone Age religion, which is Islam, and the Muslims have converted to Christianity in record numbers. This is a very underreported story, that Muslims have come to Christianity and they have left Islam. So what happens is those people that have infiltrated our nation, they are looking at certain churches as part of the problem because they've converted, people away from Islam. So I will tell you that several people don't know this, and I want to just put it out there. A lot of churches that are doing well and do a lot of missionary work, they have former police officers in church with guns. They are well prepared across the nation, not just around here locally, but across the nation. Former police and the pastors and the other members of the church, they all work together, and some churches have already, probably within the past 5 years, developed security plans and security teams to protect their church. And out there in Texas, unfortunately, I don't think they had any plan. I'm not criticizing them for not having a plan, because when you go to worship, you shouldn't have to be worried about carrying a gun.
No, you shouldn't, Todd. You should not in America. And Todd,
but one more thing, Donald. People that go to church love the Lord and they love God. But some people, and let's say the everyday American, forgets how real evil is. Evil is just as real as God, which I would say is the goodness in this world. And people just need to remember, evil is a real threat, and when you see evil up close and personal, you'll never forget it. It will stick with you the rest of your life, and unfortunately, real evil stepped into that doorway at the church in Texas, and my heart goes out to all the victims of that town, the community, the tragedy, everyone out there. It's just, something like that changes a whole town.
I cried.
Within hours. I mean, the sadness that overtakes a community, it's horrible.
And it overtook the country, Todd. I think it overtook the whole country.
That too.
And Todd, these things that go on in our country, it really bothers me. And you know me by now. You know me good enough. I have been sitting up at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking about this stuff. And I found myself at 2 o'clock here about 3 days ago in the morning, and I got up and I wrote something down. I just want to read it to you, what I wrote down.
Okay.
I just want everyone to know that I do love my country and the people in it. And yes, I am a patriot, and I do support our president. And everybody out there might be asking, who is this guy? Well, let me tell you about who I am, Todd. I'm a guy that would give my life for this great nation. Folks, this is my home. It's my children's home, Todd. It's my grandchildren's home. I've said it before. I want my grandchildren to grow up and have the same freedoms that I had when I was young. And I won't stop fighting until I know that their rights and freedoms are going to be there for them. They are my future, my legacy. And I know that your children and grandchildren mean the same to you. We
That's
must
right.
preserve our nation, Todd. We must preserve our freedoms. We must preserve our rights. We must preserve our history. We must preserve our way of life. And most of all, in this country, we must preserve the Lord in this great nation. Because without Him in our nation, we will fall. And we must all come together to fight, to keep our country the greatest nation on earth. We can't wait until tomorrow, Todd. The time is now, brother. It's now, Todd.
I
We gotta
completely
fight
agree.
back.
I completely agree. The sovereignty of the nation is under attack from outside influences and internal influences. When you have organized people being paid to protest and start trouble in cities across the land, there's a problem. When you have outside invaders coming in to try to replace your law in the law of this land with Sharia law, you have a problem. Those two elements, internal threats and external threats, are what every American should be concerned about right now. Donald Trump, this was all going to happen even if he never existed.
Yes.
These problems would have still came in because Obama let them in for 8 years. He increased the numbers before he left office, and that's the Australia thing where Donald Trump came in and said, you know, why do I have to take these people? And they said, well, it was a deal Obama made. And he said, I don't want to take these refugees. And he ended up having to take a larger number than he wanted to try to appease Australia. Why should we have to appease any other country when a former president who did so many terrible things to undermine the sovereignty of this nation? You want to talk about why people do kill Donald? We have a society that's broken down. I mean, the family unit broken down.
Thank you.
People
Thank
don't
you
sit.
for that.
Families don't sit around and have dinner together like they used to. They don't celebrate the holidays like they used to. And that was something Donald Trump talked about bringing back the words "Merry Christmas." We were told for 8 years as a society that wanted to be told, politically correct, with the speech police of the left. We were told we couldn't say Merry Christmas. And you know what? That's not how we were as a nation for 180 years before, the liberals took over power. So there's a story out. CNN's reporting, Donald, and I hate to quote them because they're known for for faking the news. But this is a story that I just read today that they did a poll, and the Democratic Party is looked on so unfavorably right now that they're at a 25-year low in favorability ratings. So the people of this country, even Democrats, are now looking at the Democratic Party that has been completely exposed as corrupt from the top down with the Donna Brazile revelations and that stuff.
We'll get into that in a minute.
Right. But I mean, if you have lawlessness at the top with the corruption that was going on for the past 8 years, it's going to lead to lawlessness in the streets, and that's seems to be what's happening. So now is the time to get involved. For everybody listening, get involved in your local communities. Be a part of the solution, not the problem. Don't create division among your family, your friends, or your neighbors, and try to find common ground with people, because the media preys on your weakness to be divided, and they drive wedges between husband and wife. Even
Right.
we saw that with the last election, and it burns me up that people don't see through the bullcrap and look at what's really going on.
Well, speaking of Democrats, just like you just did, and they are, I'm not going to say all of them, because there are some Democrats, you even said it yourself, that do love their country. I'm going to talk about the far left, you call it alt-left, left-handed loonies. Now, there's this lady, Todd, her name is Chelsea Handler. She is a comedian, she's an actress, she's a writer, a television host, and a producer. Her name is Chelsea Handler. Now, she tweeted this tweet not very long after this Texas shooting. And I'm going to quote her tweet. And I want you to tell me what you think about this. What she tweeted. She
Okay.
tweeted. Now this is Chelsea Handler. Everybody look her up if you don't already know who she. She tweeted, and I quote: "Innocent people go to church on Sunday to honor their God, and while doing so, get shot and killed. What country? Question mark. America. Why? Question mark." And she put down the word Republicans. To me, this lady needs to be locked up. It's too soon for this blame game.
Well,
It's too soon for a blame game right now. The people's bodies wasn't even cold when she tweeted this out, Todd.
she's a bitch, and she ought to probably do some inner self-reflection, because that's something that a total bitch would say. No, really. It's reminiscent of the same statement Hillary Clinton made, that the GOP and all Republicans were complicit in the Las Vegas shooting. It's the same mindset. It's the same mentality. If you want to stereotype a whole group of people, and
She did.
But there are extremists on both sides, the extreme left and the extreme right.
Right.
There are extremists. I will agree that there are some stereotypes that go along with the extreme on both sides. But if you want to talk as Americans, one American to another, regardless of race, creed, sexual orientation, any of that stuff, and talk about what makes our country great, those are things that every person who uses their rights in this country should agree on. It's not something that should divide people. And for that bitch to say something like that and blame a whole group of Republicans,
Yes.
shows the mentality of the liberal left, the far left.
And speaking of the Democrats, Todd,
It
you
pisses
brought
me
this up.
off.
It does. I know, Todd.
Because Hillary Clinton's doing the same thing, Donald. She's doing the same thing, and now it's totally blew up in her face.
We'll get to that. And Todd, I know you're getting riled up.
I'm getting
listen,
pissed.
Everybody out there listening to ARM Radio, my friend Todd, I'm gonna tell you, he is not. It's not like he does this for fun, but he hates corruption. We all should hate corruption. And Todd, he exposes his corruption in a good way. I like the way you expose corruption, Todd. But
Somebody's got to
talking
do
about
it.
the Democrats. There's another Democrat, Senator Tom Leahy. Now, this is right after last week's killing there in New York. You know, with that lunatic that screamed out Allah Akbar, ran over those people there in New York.
They're trying to cover that up, Donald. Did you know that?
Well, listen to this, though. What he said about Donald Trump. It's the claim. Senator Leahy said he claims Trump is dangerously uninformed about U.S. justice. Trump said something about sending that guy...
With justice.
Quick justice.
Yeah.
Quick justice, swift justice.
Yeah.
But he's wanting to send him to Gitmo. And to me, Todd, Gitmo is too good for this man. That's where it comes where I talk about when you send any murderer that kills people like that, like this guy, this terrorist that screamed out Allah Akbar, sending him to prison and feeding him for the rest of his life and giving him shelter. We have veterans on our streets right now that are homeless, that are not even eating, Todd. They don't have a roof over their head. They're freezing. They're hungry. But yet we'll take a murderer like this guy that screamed out Allah Akbar and killed all these people, and we'll send him to prison, and he'll live a life, Todd. At least he's living a life, and our veterans aren't living a very good life. Some of them aren't.
Let me tell you something, Donald. I've talked about this for probably the past 15 years. If we brought back public executions, and I know this is a subject that sounds crazy.
We need to.
Well, it sounds crazy to a lot of people at first, but if we brought that back where people were hung in the streets after their appeals were exhausted, because that is part of our court system, that people will have a trial. So if they have new evidence, they can get an appeal. So sometimes there are appeals. If their appeals have ran out and there's no new evidence, and they're guilty as charged, we should bring back public executions. You know how many? Do you know how many pedophiles in this country would stop being pedophiles if they knew what would happen to them if we did things the right way?
Well, we used to do that, Todd, back in the old days. But you know what happened? Liberals happened.
Well, I'm going to
get you fired up. I'm
already pissed off, Donald.
Well, I'm going to go into a story that I know you've been following. And please, everybody out there, we're not haters, but this stuff has to stop. Now, I'm going to get you fired up with this one, Mr. Doyle.
Okay.
Donna Brazile. You all remember Donna Brazile? She used to be a news anchor, and then she was like Hillary's. What'd she do with Hillary? She was like the head of her campaign.
She stepped in as interim DNC chair.
Okay, well, what happened with Donna Brazile, and you can take over after this. Donna Brazile is breaking her silence. She called this guy named Gary Gensler. He was the chief financial officer of Hillary's campaign, and he told Donna that the Democratic Party was broke and $2 million in debt. And I guess Hillary, it's called the Hillary Victory Fund, they had paid off a lot of this debt. So basically, Hillary was running the Democratic Party. Now, I mean, we got all these Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the Podestas are all involved in this. Shit is hitting the fan, and I think Donna Brazile is coming forward because I think she don't want to be implicated in some of this stuff herself, and I think she's coming forward also to save her life from the Clintons. What do you think about Donna Brazile and what she's saying, Doc? Go ahead. It's up to you.
You're leaving out one part. She's promoting a book, so that's one part.
Right,
there's money involved. The second, I do believe that it insulates her from some retaliation by coming out with a partial truth. Today she tried to walk back some statements. Earlier in the day today, she said that if anyone didn't believe her, they could all go to hell. Because that's how, love trumps hate, is by telling everybody to go to hell. But, so earlier today she said that, and then a member of our group reported that she's trying to walk it back. So Donna Brazile, she did get caught giving Hillary the debate questions, the CNN debate.
I remember that.
And she denied it over and over again. So I researched Donna Brazile, and I looked her up, and she's been corrupt and involved in scandal for a long time. Most of these people that are close to Hillary, they've been involved in other scandals and other controversies. And something I do that other people could do as well if they have the time is to go and search newspaper archives and type the person's name in. And I did this on Hillary during the election just because I knew there were bad stories from when the Clintons were in office, but I wanted to see if there was something I missed. And one of the things I missed on Hillary, Donald, was when she ran her Senate campaign, her chief financial officer in charge of her Senate campaign ended up going to jail because of what Hillary did with taking money from a man named Peter Paul out in Hollywood at the Hollywood Gala.
Great name.
So Hillary is riddled in corruption, and Donna Brazile, same thing. You look her up, you'll find stories going back to the 90s where she was doing scandalous things. So she's still, even though she's telling a little bit of the truth, I believe there was a sign.
But why is she coming out now, Todd? Why is she coming out now with this stuff?
Well, because it's heating up. The Mueller investigation is falling apart. The Robert Mueller FBI into Trump.
Is this tied in with the Uranium One scandal? Is this all tied together, Todd, somehow?
What I think, but can't prove, is that a lot of the Democrats, like Mr. Leahy, that are coming out vehemently against Donald Trump, I believe that they're going to be implicated in the probe once they get the Clinton Foundation documents, if they're not already shredded and destroyed. I think a lot of these Democrats have a personal stake somehow by being involved with Hillary and Bill Clinton and the foundation and the pay-to-play and all of that. I think that's why they're coming out so hard against the president. I don't think they personally like Hillary Clinton or her politics, but they probably invested and made money in shady deals, and I think they have their own interests to protect, and part of that is to try to undermine Trump as the Robert Mueller investigation falls apart, and it turns more to all the new information that's come out with Uranium One. Obama knew about it. The FBI caught 10 Russian spies and had to send them back to Russia. There's been a lot of information come out on that Uranium One deal.
And that's why we're bringing it up again tonight. And we don't want to sound like broken records, Todd, but we do have to tell people because this is new information coming out. Every day there's something coming out. And Todd, you speak about our president. You talked about Donald Trump. And I'm sure everybody is aware that our president, our loving 45th president, is on an Asian tour right now. He stopped in Hawaii, and he visited the USS, I think it was the Arizona, and he laid a wreath.
Yes.
I think he went to Japan from there, and now he's in South Korea. And
Right.
he's also going to be visiting China, Vietnam, and the Philippines. Now, Todd, this, to me, I think this is all a high stakes. This whole trip is just to focus heavily on the nuclear standoff with Korea. Remember, fire and fury, brother, fire and fury.
Well, Rocket Man likes to make threats, but like I've said before, our CIA has tried to do things in North Korea for a long time and have been unsuccessful. Bill Clinton signed the nuclear disarmament deal, and it would take 20 years before they could get nukes. The 20 years is up. Now it's Donald Trump's problem because no one else renegotiated that deal. It's like Obama and Bush Jr., they just went with it and they never cared. So now he has to deal with that problem. If they're threatening with intercontinental ballistic missiles, if they're threatening to take out, I think it was Guam they could reach, or possibly
Japan too, yes.
Yeah. And there's other things going on right now. But I want to say one thing before I forget. Going back to the truck driver, the man who drove the rental truck in New York.
Last week, yes.
Yeah, there's a cover-up going on where now there are people coming out, these are representatives, Democrats, saying that he did not shout Allah Akbar when people have him on video.
Sure, they're going to say that, Todd. Sure, they're going to say that.
But think about it. What interest are they trying to protect from hiding the truth? They're also putting out, the Democrats are also putting out videos, Donald, where Muslim men and women in America are acting like, when a Muslim attack happens, it's different from when a white person commits an attack or something. They're hoping it's not a Muslim. Well, my problem with that is, where's the condemnation of the Muslim community against radical Sharia jihad? Well, there is some. There is pushback from some. But as a collective, I mean, why aren't they denouncing these acts against the infidels? Because if you're not a Muslim,
you're an infidel.
You're an infidel. So why are they not denouncing that? So I don't really care how they feel. I'm sorry. If they come here illegally and they become a United States citizen and they practice Islam, that's fine as long as they don't ever go for Sharia. Because when they go for Sharia, they open up the door for jihad. And when they open up jihad, we have terror in the streets and we have a takeover and an invasion. So
see, I believe differently, Todd. I believe anybody who reads the Quran, I believe they are, like I said last week, I think they're worshiping a pedophile. And going back to Trump, Todd, do you think that he is going to China and these different countries over in Asia? Do you think that Korea is one of the main reasons why our president is overseas right now?
I think there's a lot of chess pieces being moved around. But about why I said what I said about Islam, the Constitution provides for freedom of religion, and so I can't judge them, and I don't want them to judge me. But if my religion thrived on violence and conflict, thrived on basically killing anyone who wasn't my religion, people would say I was in a cult.
Well,
they would say I was in a cult.
Do that. Christian religion don't tell you to go kill another religion because they're not Christian.
Well,
you're right. You're absolutely right.
In the past, Donald, there has been the Catholic War and the Christian Catholic War, where Catholics killed a lot of Christians back in I believe it was the 1500s, but it might have been a different year. The Catholic Christian War was very bad, and now Catholics and Christians still kind of put up with each other because basically, Catholicism is a lot different than like Southern Baptist or a Baptist church. So they tolerate each other without violence because we're what's the right word? We're developed. We're a developed nation.
We're not a third world country.
We're not in the Stone Ages practicing a Stone Age religion. And that's what some of these people have done for centuries. They've practiced a Stone Age religion, and with Saudi Arabia and the things
that's what I was going to bring up next, Todd. I was getting ready to bring that up, brother.
Go ahead.
Well, things are heating up. They're always heated up in the Middle East. Things have always been heated up in the Middle East. For some reason, they cannot stop fighting with each other over there. I don't know I think it's a whole religion thing myself. But anyway, Saudi Arabia is vowing war with Iran. I guess Iran is making missiles and lobbing them over into Saudi Arabian towns and cities.
Riyadh.
They're giving missiles to these terrorist organizations, and basically Saudi Arabia is letting them know that they're not going to get by with this. There's going to be actions. For every action, there's going to be a reaction, and they're not going to tolerate it anymore. So what's your take on Saudi Arabia now going to basically maybe at war with Iran? What do you think about that?
There was some reporting earlier today from Infowars.com, and a lot of people, have their opinions about that site. I followed them for several years because they're ahead of the curve, and I hate to break it to the people that don't care for the site, but they are ahead of the curve. They're reporting today on there was a Yemen raid where intel was gathered and collected.
Yemen, yes.
That this borders the southern portion of Saudi Arabia. This raid gathered intelligence which unlocked the whole plan on who was involved with funding ISIS and who was involved with some other kind of highly deep intelligence operations. And what's happened is Donald Trump got a hold of that information. Now, if this relates back to Las Vegas, where some people said that Stephen Paddock was a possible gun runner for an element of our government or something, if Donald Trump found out something from the Yemen raid that tied into Stephen Paddock, well, I'm sure our president is pretty pissed off. But the king of Saudi Arabia, if you remember, that was Donald Trump's first stop when he went overseas.
Right. Yes.
And the king of Saudi Arabia is on board with stopping radical jihad.
I'm glad.
That's a good thing. And the other reporting that came out today was that several princes in Saudi Arabia had been executed or their helicopters crashed mysteriously, and they'd been shot dead, basically. And there's been several, and these are the ones I believe that came from the Yemen intelligence, which we've not heard anything about in the mainstream news. So some of these things we're talking about are going to go over the heads of some of the listeners out there, but it's out there. If you go to InfoWars and watch today's videos from them, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a ton of information out there about this, but the mainstream media doesn't know how to package it and sell it to their audience that wants to be coddled to. So if they... Go ahead.
Sorry. There's another, besides that, there's another thing you sent me, the Drudge Report. That's a really, really good one, man.
What is it? What story?
The Drudge Report. That's a good site to get news from.
Yeah. Matt Drudge busted the Monica Lewinsky scandal back in the 90s under Bill Clinton. He busted that before anybody else. He broke that story. So
I got a question for you.
Sure.
What the hell happened with the Antifa on November 4th, Todd? There was supposed to be so much civil unrest. I tell you, Todd, I seen more civil unrest at my grandson's Pee Wee football game that day than I did out of Antifa. Now, are they a threat? Maybe. But like I said, they were telling everybody they were going to attack this country on that day. That's not how you do war. That's not warfare. You do not tell your enemy when you're going to attack. And you know what? I made a video right before the November the 4th when they were supposed to attack our country. You heard all about that, right?
Right.
Well, anyway, I said it wasn't the 4th that I was worried about. It was the day after, and the day after that. And what happens? This Texas shooting happened just like I said it would. You don't tell people when you're going to attack them. I think Antifa, yes, they could be dangerous. Antifa and the BLM, they could be dangerous. But to me, Todd, I worry more about the radical Islamic terrorists than I do these hate groups that are in our country.
Well, I see them all as equal threats. I don't weigh one more than the other. And what's dangerous is not what they did or didn't do on November 4th. It's the ideas and the ideologies behind what they believe in, which is communism. And they have been declared a domestic terror organization by the Department of Homeland Security. So there are reasons for that. They didn't just put them on the list for no reason. So they are a domestic terror group. They go into towns, they create mass conflict and violence, and then the media loves that because it makes it look like, they call them counter-protesters, when really they're communist Antifa that called for the overthrow of the United States government, and no one did anything about it. They didn't round those people up and question them or anything. I thought we had anti-communism laws on the books, but it didn't seem like anyone did anything the day after Heather Hoyer was killed in Charlottesville. So,
do you think that Antifa and the Black Lives Matter, do you think groups like that, Todd, in this country are being paid from people like George Soros? I know
definitely.
Everybody says George Soros.
He's one of them.
There's more people out there than George Soros that's got all this money that are trying to cause anarchy in our country. Right. And I just wish we knew who these other people were.
Well, there's a published list of names. I shared it a couple weeks ago. The Ford Foundation donated money to, I think it was Hillary Clinton's dark money super PAC called Onward Together, and they donated more money than George Soros did. So Obama also has his organization, Organizing for Action, or I think that's what it's called, and we've talked about this before, and I think they're both collecting money. They're both paying people. But as far as Antifa goes, Donald, I think you kind of missed the point. It's the ideologies of people that believe in things completely contradictory to the United States. I mean, that's
why do they call themselves Antifa? That's anti-fascist when that's totally what they are, is fascists. Why do they say that?
It's a front. It's the same. The same flag they fly was flown in Nazi Germany, and they called themselves the anti-fascist faction or party. And Nazi actually stands for National Socialist. So that's what I mean about Bernie Sanders being a Democratic Socialist in 2016. He opened the door for all these types of people to feel like they had a legitimate spot on the platform to voice their crazy ideas in America.
Is it money driven, or is it ideology driven? Why would Americans want to hurt other Americans? That's kind of what I'm trying to say is, why would any of these groups, if it's Antifa, most of them are Americans, Black Lives Matter, why would they want to hurt fellow Americans?
Everyone is so divided, and there's so many different factions in the public, that everyone is trying to seek a spot where their voice is heard. Like BLM wants to stand up for, what they want to stand up for, and against police brutality. But if you called it White Lives Matter, if it was happening to white people, that would be immediately shut down by everyone. And there's no. This is one thing I kind of want to talk about this. Before this election in 2016, I never thought about like the terminology that people use. I never really cared, about nationalism and patriotism. I always just called myself like a nationalist and a patriot because I care about nationalism, which is America's sovereignty. I'm a constitutionalist, so that falls in line with nationalism. But then, and since Donald Trump has taken over, and what happened in Charlottesville, all of a sudden, anyone there that was only carrying an American flag to support patriots and to support nationalism was called a quote-unquote white nationalist, which is different than a white supremacist, but they were called a white nationalist, like it's a bad thing by all the members of the media because something terrible happened, and Democrats were involved there too.
And there's something going on in the country, though.
The Democrats were involved there. That man, I forget his name now, but the organizer of that event was a registered Democrat up until 3 days before the election, where he claims he voted for Donald Trump. Then the mayor had to step down for his racist Twitter tweets in Charlottesville. But the media, what I'm getting at, is they demonized any person there that just was there to support the country, because the rally was called Unite the Right. So a lot of groups showed up that had nothing to do with white supremacy, but they were there because they thought it was a rally to unite the right. And a lot of people on the right are conservatives, so a lot of different groups showed up. But then the media started demonizing the word white nationalist. And I never looked at myself that way. I'm a white male, but I never looked at myself as a white nationalist. But if they want to throw terms around, and if they want to label people, I guess that I fall into the category of a white nationalist, because I love my country, and I am a nationalist, so I believe in our sovereignty.
I agree with everything you say, Todd. I am not a racist, but there's things going on in our country today, in our society. I sit and I think sometimes, like, now, please, everybody out there, listen to me. I swear to you, on my life, I am not a racist, because I look at black people, yellow people, white people. My skin is not supreme over any other color of anybody else's skin. I'm not a white supremacist, but there's things going on in our country. Let's talk about some of these things. Let's just open it. Let's get out in the open about this country. Now, we have a thing in this country right now in our school systems. It's called Black History Month. Now, what would happen if, say, they come out with something called White History Month? That would automatically be deemed racist. In my book, White History Month would be deemed racist. If you did something to be in the history books, you would already be in the history books. To me, I'm not trying to be racist about it, but it just sounds racist when you hear that word, Black History Month. Then we got to go into this word called white privilege. Todd, I have never had white privilege in my life. I have never had any white privilege in my life.
It's a myth. It's a myth.
There's no such thing, because I've worked hard my whole life. I've never had any privilege in this world. I've worked hard, Todd. And another thing, this just goes on and on. The list does. I don't know what's going on in our country. I just wish, like I said last week, we black people, white people, yellow people, everybody that's an actual citizen of this country, we need to unite and stick together. We need to quit labeling ourselves as like I said last week, African Americans or whatever.
Right.
We need to be Americans. I love everybody. I don't hate nobody. But it just seems like there's more. It's like, I don't know, there's a war against being white for some reason. It's like there's an attack on white people. What is the problem with that, man?
Because communists believe that the only way to end racism is to kill all white people. And then you got third wave feminists on top of it saying to abort white babies or white boy babies and stuff. I mean, all of this is Looney Tunes. This is the mentality of many people on the left. The black community would argue that, you know, all other history taught in schools is quote unquote white people history, and that's why that's what they would argue. And there's so many arguments that come from the Democratic plantation, but one of them is that, you know, black people can't be racist because they're black, and that if you say, well, that's racist, they say, how dare you? I have every right. You don't experience my oppression because you're white. Well, color is not oppression by definition. Oppression is the actions that someone took against you that made you feel oppressed. Now,
very well said. Very well said. I love that, Todd. That's very well said.
But that doesn't mean that it will matter to them, because some people that are coming from that mindset of the Democratic plantation, they actually are secretly a supremacist themselves, whether they're a black supremacist, whether they're a white supremacist, because you got to remember the Democratic Party founded the KKK. So there's a lot of brainwashing going on in that sect of that voting block of Democrats. There's a lot of very confusing word games they play and things like that really people need to try to slow it down and think about, you know, what are they race baiting? They do a lot of race baiting, and they, I mean, for 8 years, if you criticized Obama, you were called a racist by everyone. I mean, it was everyone on the left.
But Obama he was not the first black president. He was half white, Todd, but everybody said he was our first black president.
Oh, excuse me.
And just like the group Black Lives Matter, that alone sounds racist, Todd. To me, all lives matter. All lives matter.
No one wanted to hear that. But see, that's where the supremacy part comes in. If you went into, like, there were psychological study videos on YouTube where they went into predominantly black neighborhoods, and they held up a sign that said all lives matter, and they got jumped, they got beat down, and all that other stuff by people in that area because they didn't want it to say all lives matter because they feel like that was their way to regain some voice in the national discussion.
Daggone it, if it ain't going to be said, I'm going to say it right here. I'm just going to say it tonight. And you brought it up earlier when you said the Democratic Party did start the KKK. I'm going to tell you what I learned from history. And let's talk, you said the Democrats are evil. Let's just tell people how evil these Democrats are. After the blacks got their rights to vote in this country, Todd, do you know that the Democrats, they did form the KKK many years ago, but they would actually go in and they would make black people vote for Democrats. Either they would pay them or they would punish them somehow back in the old days. But they were brought up to think, to vote Democrat. The Democratic Party was going to be there for them. But the Democratic Party, they just used them for vote. They used the black people for vote. And I feel the Democratic Party is evil. It's a very evil party, and it needs to be disbanded. I'm tired of it, Todd. You don't know what I went through today over here in local politics. These liberals, they have lost their mind. I'm talking about the far left ones. I can't say every liberal, but they've lost their mind, and that's why our country is in the damn shape it's in tonight. It's in the shape that's in tonight because these liberals have softened our country. Our kids are soft. Our kids are even soft in this country. Todd, let's go back to the old days. Let's just go back when we were younger. Now listen, when I was in high school, by God, we had the right. We could even smoke a cigarette in school. Could you imagine today if little liberal Lisa or Democratic Danny went to school and the teachers let him smoke in school? You know how many lawsuits they would be? But we were actually allowed to smoke in school when I was a kid.
You go back a little further than that, Donald, and they actually taught students how to shoot guns in school. They had shooting ranges built into the schools in the 50s.
Well, schools are liberal breeding grounds anymore. Else they don't even teach God. They teach Darwinism in school. Right.
Well, I mean, that's what you get when you have corruption at the top, from the top down, incrementally compartmentalizing. It's a compartmentalized breakdown of our society. And they've been planning this for 30 years, and they were not expecting Donald Trump. They weren't expecting the correction that comes along with his presidency. I think he's getting Saudi Arabia in line. I think he's working on getting North Korea in line.
China.
And China.
He's getting China on board with us in case we attack Korea.
Oh, sure he is. And he has good relationships with China. I mean, the World Bank of China rents space at his Fifth Avenue building. So
why would he be going to Vietnam, Todd? What would be the purpose of Vietnam? What would be the purpose, you think?
Well, I think he wanted to, there was a report out today that he wanted to go to the DMZ line, and something to do with bad weather did not permit the trip. I don't know what exactly happened, but I think Donald Trump is working his ass off for the American people.
Yes,
I think he's the first president in our history that we all know didn't take anybody's money to be president, and every American should be grateful for that, because I think every American with common sense knows that if you take money out of politics, you get an actual guy that wants to do a good job. What's his motivation? I mean, the Democrats want to say, well, he's lining his own pockets.
That's a good point. You just brought up a good point.
How could he be lining his own pockets when he signed away all rights to his businesses to his children, and he's working his ass off as president? How could he be doing that?
What a good point you just brought up. That would be like, Todd, if just say you hired a man to come and mow your grass, and that man said, no, I'll mow your grass for free. And let's just say he leaves a few grass, he didn't mow a few strips. How can you complain when that man is mowing your grass for free? Well, what gives you the right to complain? This president is working for the American people for free, and he's trying to protect the American people. This is to make it right with Korea. All this hate, Donald, our president, it's got to stop. I'm tired of
Donald, this could be a rebirth of Americana, is what it could be. Americanism.
I hope it is.
It could be a rebirth if people would just get on board. That's why the show's called All Aboard, because we want people on board. And if you need help understanding how you've been lied to, then do more reading and do more research. Read the alternative narratives to what's been shoved down your throat. Look at news from multiple sources and form your own conclusions. Most people that are conservative on the right are actually pretty critical thinkers. We're independent. We try to, fact check stories, and we try to, form our own independent thoughts because we don't want to be brainwashed by the media. Let's put it that way.
And Todd, the whole point is, I just want Americans to come together. I want us to come together. That is my dream for all Americans to come together. Let's stop this racial divide. And like Obama, he did set the civil rights movement back. In my opinion, he did set it back. We need to stop it, though. We need to stop it. We need to become Americans. We need to love our country. We need to love one another. And like you said earlier, the family is starting to break down. And when the family breaks down, there is going to be no more country, Todd. What is that old saying? A house divided will fall. Have you heard that old saying? Something like that.
Yeah, divided we fall, united we stand.
A house divided will fall. And that's what's happening in this country right now. And I do believe the liberals are trying to divide this country. In some evil way, I think they are trying to divide us.
But why? The leadership is so corrupt, and they're being exposed completely, and people still aren't getting it. The Democratic Party...
Why don't they get it, though? Why don't they get it?
Either they're a part of that corruption and they've made money themselves, which I find hard to believe, or they're so dumbed down by fluoride in the water, or they just can't understand that for 30 years we've been ran by criminals, and they've gotten away with it. They've gotten away with murder. They've gotten away with robbing the coffers for all these illegal undeclared wars. They've gotten away with a ton of things. And the American people have to realize that this affects all of us. It doesn't just affect conservatives. It doesn't affect, Democrats. It affects all of us because we live here. And like I've said, if you care about any one of your constitutional rights, if you have any resemblance of respect for our military and our flag, then you should care too about the things Donald Trump and his presidency are trying to bring to light. And it's some of the darkest, most political, corrupt things that have ever happened in our history, but the information is coming to light. And when it does, when people start to get it, that it wasn't just getting the questions in advance, that she owned the DNC a year before she even got the nomination. When people start to put all this together, why did she delete 33,000 emails after they were subpoenaed by Congress due to her 13-hour testimony over Benghazi? When people start to put all this together, and then when the real information comes out later about Benghazi and what really happened, that's going to blow people's minds.
I hope people does open their eyes up. And I just want to tell everybody out there listening to our radio, once again, Todd, we love our country, and we love everybody in it. I'm talking about the citizens of this country. Me and Todd, we're not haters. We are not haters. We want our country to come together. That's what we're hoping, both of us. Todd, I know you love everybody in this country, but you want them to understand. That's the whole part of our show. Like you said, all aboard. We want the people to understand what they're not being told, because the mainstream media, they kind of do like the older people. Now, there's a lot of older people. Whatever the news says, that's golden to them. They believe that.
Right.
And Armed Radio, I'll tell you what, Joe Savina, the producer Jimmy, these are great guys. They've given us a great platform. I want to thank these guys so much. Armed Radio, they've got some great shows on here, and I just can't say enough good things about Armed Radio and them giving us this platform to come on here every week and inform the American people. And Todd, you are a guy to me. You're younger than me, but I look up to you, Todd, because you are so smart and you research so much stuff. And I just want to say that I'm proud to be an American. I love my country, and thank you for Armed Radio for giving us this opportunity. Thank you, Armed Radio. I really enjoy doing this. And me and Todd, we're just getting started. We ain't even got the tip of the iceberg yet.
I also want to echo Donald's comments there. I appreciate this opportunity as well. I also, Donald, you don't have to look up to me. If I ever say something you don't agree with, look it up on your own.
Oh.
I've said this for 20 years. Don't believe me, look it up. Look up these things.
I know you tell facts, Todd. I know you do. It's facts. It's all facts. I have looked it up. Everything you tell me, believe it or not, I do go and check it out. I do. And that's what I wish the listeners would do. I wish they would go out and check what we're saying. If they really dig deep into it, they would find out everything you're saying is true. And that's what I want people to do. I want them to open their eyes.
It's a giant puzzle that once you start with the bigger pieces, all the little smaller pieces start fitting together, and you start seeing what's really going on. They're putting on a show. The Democratic Party is putting on a show in hopes of a distraction big enough that the real criminals won't go to prison where they need to be. That's how bad it was, and it all started with Benghazi, with Christopher Stevens and the three other men. And was it 3 men? Yeah.
Yes,
the 4 that died.
They could have been saved that night too. They could have been saved. They were called back.
Well, no, Donald. There is stuff that the American people have not been told that was handled in Senate Intelligence Committee closed door sessions, and when that information all comes to light, which I believe it will, American people that supported Hillary Clinton will have their minds completely blown, because even if they already know she's bad a little bit, if I'm right, and that information ever sees the light of day, which I hope and pray that it will, they're going to be taken aback like, wow, I knew she was bad, but Jesus Christ, who is this woman?
Well,
that's the reaction I had.
Maybe that's why Jeff Sessions has been so quiet. I think he's gathering information. I think he's going to nail them to the wall, brother.
I think they've had the case ready to go for 2 years. I think they're just crossing their T's and dotting their I's. And you're seeing a slow drip of new information being released almost every week now, and it's just piling up. Donna Brazil's
gotta wrap
book
it up,
tour.
Todd. We got 30-second warning here.
Okay, we'll be back next week, everybody. And Donald, go ahead and close it up. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Everybody, I love this Armed Radio. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Josephino. Thank you, Jimmy. God bless each and every one of you out there that has listened to me and my friend tonight. And we do. We just try to tell you the truth, and that's it. The truth and only the truth. And I want America to come together as one. That's it. That's all I got to say. Donald Whisman, over and out.